My name is Paul Goss. I live in Brooklyn, New York.
And I've been painting since 2009.
In a minute, we will be delving into the accuracy of that last sentence of Paul's. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is John Thornton, and I'm always on the hunt for excellent artists to showcase. I stumbled upon Paul's beautiful landscape paintings on social media and contacted him about making a movie. We've had some phone conversations, some of which I recorded. So let's take a look at his work as the story of Paul Goss unfolds. Now, Paul has indeed been painting since 2009, but he had been a painter before that and quit. You said that you stopped painting for, was it 9 years?
15.
Why was that?
I was painting at the time abstract paintings. They were paintings about ideas. I had just painted myself into a corner. And then when Maria showed up.
Maria? Hold on. First, here's what led up to Paul painting himself into a corner. He grew up near Boston in a household without art or art books, but his older sister loved to draw and Paul followed suit. He was good at it and eventually got an art degree from the Massachusetts College of Art and Design, where he was taught that art should be about ideas and preferably abstract. Eventually, that aesthetic completely drained him and he quit. Enter Maria, a woman who painted constantly, whatever was in front of her. She wasn't painting an idea, but having the experience of seeing and painting.
She really got me going, and she also got me going thinking in a different way. She would just set up an easel in the middle of the kitchen and paint like keys on a table or outside the window. It just didn't matter. Yeah, that slowly over time made a big impact on me. You can paint anything. We would go to the park up the street and she would paint trees and I would hang out there and read. We took a vacation to Cape Cod. She brought 30 canvases to paint on, and I asked her if I could borrow one of her canvases.
Well, that's the cue for me to put on my amateur art historian glasses. This 2009 painting was his first in 15 years. It's clearly a landscape of Cape Cod, but the floating head in the sky seems to me to be a final vestige of the idea painting aesthetic that Paul was abandoning.
It was really everything to do with her, because I realized that you didn't have to have an idea as opposed to just trying to make a painting.
Paul's great subject has been landscapes and cityscapes. I wondered how far back that interest went.
I tried painting landscapes in 1984 and they were horrible. And then years later, I'm painting landscapes.
What was your difficulty back then?
I had a huge problem with the color green.
What eventually cured you?
I was outside with a friend and he looked up and he's looking at all the trees and he's like, I see all sorts of different greens here. That was a real revelation. I stopped buying green paint. All my greens I mix now.
Are the colors in your paintings ever made up, or are you trying to be as accurate as possible about what you're seeing?
No, they're made up. Most of the time they're made up. It depends on the painting. I'll try and key in on a part of a painting. Color is relative to what's next to it. I try and exaggerate what presents itself outside, atmosphere, or what mood I'm in. A painting is a world.
I just assumed that the paintings with buildings were New York City, but then maybe you went to upstate New York to do the landscapes. But you told me you haven't been outside of New York City since that 2009 trip to Cape Cod with Maria. So where are you finding all these bucolic scenes in New York?
The landscapes are done at Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn. There's great old trees, great views, because it's very hilly, the highest point in Brooklyn, and it's on a glacial ridge. There's also 6 bodies of water in there. There's a lot of wildlife, really large snapping turtles, peregrine falcons, red-tailed hawks. I've seen bald eagles.
I'm from the Philadelphia region. Some local painters find the picturesque parts of Philadelphia, which include Rittenhouse Square and Boathouse Row, and they do these paintings of them knowing that there's going to be a built-in audience. Have you ever thought about that, like maybe Central Park?
I have painted in Central Park and in Prospect Park, not since 2012 or so. It was a little crowded then, and now it's just insane.
Have you thought about still lifes? I know you go out painting even when it's freezing cold in the winter. Wouldn't you be happier painting a still life in a warm studio?
No, I tried that. When I started painting again, I painted indoors. It just wasn't working for me. And then I decided to go outside, and I started going around my neighborhood in Greenpoint and Williamsburg and paint on the street. This was before Williamsburg blew up. I painted in Prospect Park. I went back to a painting, and somebody was sleeping in my paint spot. So I had to move a few feet over. That was actually a revelation, too, because I realized you can move a few feet, and the view really changes. It changes a lot. It can give the painting the kick it needs. I've done this as a part of my practice since then.
Paul sent me a photo of the back of one of his paintings. All those dates are the different days you worked on that particular painting?
Yes. That is almost how I title the paintings. I'll choose the last date. That can be the name of a painting.
What's the largest number of sessions you've ever worked on a single painting?
I think it's about 70.
Wow. You know, it's interesting to me. The Impressionists tried to capture what they saw at a particular moment. And then Cezanne came along and returned again and again to the scene. He was not trying to catch an instant in time, but rather an enduring experience of a place. To me, you seem more like Cezanne than Monet in that respect.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, for sure. Cezanne was the most important influence on me.
One of the dangers of working on a painting over and over again is, will they ever be truly finished, or will that have to wait till you're in the ground? No. I have quite a few paintings that I consider finished, probably 500 paintings that I would not touch again. If you visit Paul's website, the first page features works in progress. But if you click Older Posts, you will indeed see many, many completed artworks. Paul told me he always wants his palette to be smooth at the start of a session. He has a cheap hardware store paint scraper for that purpose, and one day he started using it on the paintings themselves. If I'm going to go back and work on a painting, I scrape it down in between sessions because I don't want any texture. I don't want the brush to catch anything. I want it to move fast. It's a 2-inch scraper, and my paintings are 14 inches or something, so you can't be delicate with it. So I started using that to just carve out really big areas of the painting. But you still have a ghost of what was there. A ghost that I feel like I can do something with. It's become more of an addition-subtraction process to me, whereas before it used to be more of just an addition. What are you looking for when you go out on location? You walk by things all the time. If I find something interesting, I'll start the painting, and I'll usually start them quickly. I'm not trying to finish the painting, I'm just trying to get a blueprint, rough in the drawing, what's important, a tree, a building, corner, a hill, a bridge. And the compositions never end up like how I started them. I'll work on the same painting maybe for 5 days in a row, think it's finished, set it aside, and 6 months later I pick it back up and go to that spot, and now it's a different season. So where there were leaves, I'll put in white shapes. I'll work with what's there and then add on to what's going on now, today. The sky might be this incredible color, and I might just paint the sky and leave what's there, the buildings or whatever it is. The ones that I like are just satisfying experiences for me. Paul paints on masonite or birch panels.
The idea behind that was space saving for storage and also for transport. I used to get around on a bicycle, and now I have a shopping cart. I either walk or I take the subway to where I'm going that day.
I love the dual nature of Paul's art. It's both a representation of a subject in the real world and a physical object made up of layered accretions of paint upon a wooden substrate.
As far as objects or subjects, I think in terms of phenomenology.
Phenomenology aims to describe the essence of what it feels like to experience the world. So Paul paints not so much an objective view of Greenwood Cemetery, but his subjective experience of it.
Subject and object painting influences. I'm more influenced by literature than other artists, I think, at this point.
Can you give me an example or two?
Wallace Stevens' Jar in a Hill in Tennessee. That's something I think about like frequently. The power of objects, man-made and natural. In turn, I want the painting to become something like that. Also, William Faulkner, I reread The Sound and the Fury. I want a visual equivalence of that. I also have a quote here from Faulkner. The aim of every artist is to arrest motion, which is life, by artificial means and hold it fixed, so that in 100 years a stranger looks at it and it moves again. And this one is my favorite. Time is a fluid condition which has no existence except in the momentary avatars of individual people. There is no thing as was, only is. I just love that.
So how does that translate into what you would like people to get from your paintings?
What I would like people to take away is their own worlds, their own stories, to read them. Like when you're reading a Wallace Stevens poem, and to read them however you want, to read them fast, to read them slow.
Anecdote of the Jar by Wallace Stevens. I placed a jar in Tennessee, and round it was upon a hill. It made the slovenly wilderness surround that hill. The wilderness rose up to it and sprawled around, no longer wild. The jar was round upon the ground and tall and of a port in air. It took dominion everywhere. The jar was gray and bare. It did not give of bird or bush like nothing else in Tennessee. Paul, my artist movies almost always have a Philadelphia connection. And it turns out you have a great story about meeting one of our most beloved local painters.
So I was at Hollis Taggart installing a Bill Scott show. I didn't know Bill. Sometimes artists will show up during an installation and sometimes they won't. This fellow ambles in and he's, "Hi, I'm 68. How old are you?" I love that. He's like, "Hey, do you need any help?" And no, you're the artist. You don't do anything. And he's like, "Yeah, but I'm used to it. I carry these things all around my studio." And I was like, "Okay, I'll let you know." He said, "What do you do?" "I paint. What's your name?" And I told him, and he disappeared for a few minutes and came back out. And he goes, "I know you. And I really like your stuff." Having done this job for 20-something years, nothing like that had ever happened before. I saw him later, and he was just really effusive about my painting and said that he knew a lot of people who really loved my paintings, and that was really affirming and great to hear. Totally unexpected.
Paul's not exaggerating. Bill told me he felt like the legendary Albert Marquet was hanging his show. Paul, has living life as an artist been worth it?
Well, I made a very conscious decision to concentrate on painting in 2009 at the expense of some other things, yeah. And I really had no idea what was ahead of me, and I still don't. I wanted to make paintings that I liked, that I was engaged in, proud of. I didn't want to have a full-time job, save money and put a down payment on something. I would like all those things, but that's just not the person that I am. So I'm really happy with my decision, even though it's been not easy.
Not to put too fine a point on it, Paul is truly living on the edge. If, like me, you love his work and admire his courage, you should visit his website. If you see a painting you might be inclined to buy, click its thumbnail, then right-click on it and go to Save As. The beginning of the file name is the date and thus the title, so you can tell him which one you want. Alternatively, you can find Paul's work and connect with him on Facebook and Instagram, and email him at paultgoss@gmail.com. Good luck, Paul. I love your work.